Welcome to another stage analysis video. It's Sunday the 6th of August 2023. Got a lot to get through this weekend as always. We're going to start off with some of the week's stage 2 movers on volume before getting into the regular sections in the members part of the video. The video goes on for about an hour and a half for the full length video, but the first section should be done in about 10 to 20 minutes for the non-members of the site. But once we get into the member sections, we'll go through the index, what's going on with the US indexes, the industry groups, relative strength rankings, bell curve. We'll look at the watch list stocks and the crucial market breadth charts in order to determine the weight of evidence. So getting back to some of this week's stage 2 movers, they're not necessarily stocks that are breaking out into stage 2 this week. There are stocks, some of them already in stage 2, like FSLY, for example, here, which has been in stage 2 for a while since the early breakout in February, now making what we call a stage 2 continuation breakout. You can see obviously the base structure over the last 5-6 months or so, where it's been going sideways since the initial breakout attempt, and now making a follow-through move on some strong relative volume here. So this is kind of move we tend to see after a big long stage 4 decline like we've seen in FSLY. It did have an exceptionally strong initial stage 2 run for a very short period of time through the 2020 before topping out in a very volatile stage 3 with multiple gap downs within that base structure there at the top in stage 3 before rolling over into stage 4. So it's quite a volatile one, had a few fake breakdown attempts before finally making it into stage 4. And then you can see we've had a very, very long and deep stage 4 decline. So with this kind of small base structure, you tend to get a secondary base structure develop, as there's still a lot of overhead resistance due to the length and depth of the prior stage 4 decline. So if we, for example, stick what we got and the Ichimoku cloud on this, just the cloud, not the full Ichimoku with all the other bits, you can see we're just with this continuation breakout starting to break through that cloud resistance zone, which is the time-based resistance, gives out a 6-month lag or so. You can see that's starting to tail off a bit and starts to drop off a bit more dramatically in the coming weeks, all the way down to I think it's about 14 or so. So we've got starting to clear resistance and starting to move on a little bit now. So moving out into early stage 2 still, even though technically it moved into early stage 2 in February, we would still reasonably consider this fairly early in stage 2 because it hasn't moved too far yet, although it's technically had obviously almost 100% or so move since the earlier part of the year. If we go back to our list, AAOI, this one had a huge move this week, 64.08%. So it moved out into stage 2 a while ago, back in the early part of June, late part of May. If we could drop onto the daily chart with this one and be a little bit more clear, you can see that run up started to break through, started to break out into early stage 3 through this earlier part of June here. It got back above the 200-day moving average. There was some news, I think, related to a deal with Microsoft potentially with this one. Had an exceptionally strong run. You can see the volume picking up as it's run higher. Had an extremely strong pullback low. Obviously got deep move back below that 21-day moving average, but has had a violent move over the last week and a 67.07% move on Friday there as it gapped back up again on some of the strongest volume it's seen. If we go back to the weekly chart here, you can see it's had that move back in September last year, which was a near-term high where it had the initial buying climax following the change of behavior from the low, so the selling climax into the automatic rally and an up thrust move. So we have a similar kind of move with this in terms of volume, not quite as extreme, but one of the strongest volumes weeks that it's had, second strongest within the last 3 years or so here at least. So it's moving strongly again, so be looking for some consolidation potentially. We've got a near-term buying climax, automatic reaction. So we've got a start of a potential base structure, but it's a very, very broad range, as you can see with that. So be looking for this to potentially tighten up in the upper part of the base structure. The $10 level is often a key level with these smaller names. So potentially looking for it to tighten up around that, and then potentially could form a new entry zone. But at the moment, obviously extremely extended in the short term with that move last week. So be looking for some back and fill and tightening up there. Move on to ANET. You can see it's been a bit more volatile of late. It's been in stage 2 for a while now. You can see it had an early breakout attempt which failed, came back in again, then managed to move back out again into stage 2 earlier in 2023. It's been a fairly volatile run as it's pulled back to its 30-week moving average multiple times during its stage 2 advance, and now attempting to make a new continuation breakout attempt. A little bit of a squat on it at the end of the week there. So again, if we drop to the daily chart here, you can see it a little bit more clearly. You can see that getting above this near-term base structure here, big gap up move, potentially was on earnings on Tuesday, and then has consolidated around that significant bar during the rest of the week. So Friday's action with the weak market, it still managed to have a plus 0.4% day with a tight action in there. So I'd be looking for a continuation attempt on this one, fish hook type pattern as they call it. We're attempting to move up and out through into stage 2 again. So FRSH Freshworks also making a new stage 2 continuation attempt here. Moved out into stage 2 a little while ago back here. So potentially could argue it might even have been this week, but more clear through this area here, starting to move out into stage 2. And now with a strong volume week here, pushed higher out of the base structure and clearing resistance with this big gap up move on earnings. Hasn't survived very well since the earnings gap there. It's come all the way down to the low and already undercut it. So the short term viable gap up people will have been stopped out with that. Had a little bit of a shakeout move and then reversed back again on Friday. So sitting right at the lows of that level. So at the moment, still in a little bit of a vulnerable position with the move up, but has consolidated in a fairly tight pattern since it jumped up. And the close on the week was reasonably strong, although there was quite a bit of a pull off there. So strong volume low, and it's cleared the bulk of the stage 1 structure. So potential for this one to push higher into stage 2, potentially up towards the 25 to 30 zone even in the near term. So INFA also making a new stage 2 attempt at the moment. So big week, closed in the upper end of the range on the weekly closing range there. You can see a 16.71% move on the week. Strong relative volume compared to its average volume there. So we look for more than 2 times average weekly volume on the breakout week in the smaller names. You don't necessarily get it in the larger caps, but in the smaller to the mid cap type stocks, you'd be looking for the volume to pick up on the breakout week and to continue to strengthen as it moves through, and obviously then condense on any pullback. So if it does pull back, you'd want to see the volume tail off as well. But at the moment, attempting to move out into early stage 2 here. See a broader structure, had an initial change of behavior back in 2022 through this area here. So there is a much broader structure that it's still within, but you can see it's just starting to clear some near-term levels here. So in terms of a Wyckoff structure, you can see the selling climax, automatic rally, secondary test, up thrust action. We've got a shakeout move, spring type action, then we've got a terminal shakeout, and then it started to move back up again. So of the broader base structure, we'd consider this now a sign of strength bar in phase D, but this is a stage 2 breakout attempt within this broader structure. So you can see with the relative move here to the 200-day moving average, got multiple pivots above the 200-day moving average, which have been cleared. So that is a clear stage 2 breakout day, and obviously holding. So we'd be looking for it to hold above this 19 to 20 zone really. It's kind of the range where the stage 2 breakout occurred. So be looking for any kind of backup action to come back into there and hold, and then for potential secondary entry zones on that kind of area. So at the moment, you can look at there's a smaller base structure in there, which you could just see on the daily chart there. So again, a little bit of a selling climax, automatic rally, secondary testing type areas, and a spring type action. So again, if we drop back down to that daily, you can see it a little bit more clearly from here through this area here. So these are your points, see near-term points, and then this spring type action. You can see here we've got a terminal shakeout as a spring or spring number 2 there, and a test zone. So you can see the test came back in much tighter, didn't come all the way back down again, held very close for a few days and then started to push up, and we got some signs of strength as it started to push up through here above that 50-day moving average again. So it's your more local structure. So you can get obviously broader, you've got the broader structure, and then we've got the more local structure through here. So structures within structures with the Wyckoff bases you need to be looking for, as well as the Mansfield relative strength crossover is key for a stage 2. You don't want to see a stage 2 attempt when the Mansfield relative strength line is still below the 0 line, which is the 52-week moving average of the stock divided by the S&P 500 here.